As someone who's been using Apple products for almost a decade now, I'm fully sold on their hardware, and I'm also very intrigued about their software. And in 2025, Apple purchased what is now Photomator, previously Pixelmator, but under the new ownership, it had a little bit of a rebrand, and it is essentially Apple's photo editing software that you can use to edit your images, JPEGs, and RAWs. And of course, I was very curious to see just how good it is. I've been using it for around about 6 months now, and there are certainly some positives to Apple's photo editing software, but there are some negatives as well, which may stop me from making the switch permanently to using it to edit my images. Now, my testing has been both on my old M1 MacBook Air and my new M5 MacBook Air, and I have seen a difference in performance, and that's to be expected because I'm using a more powerful machine now. But in this review, I'm going to be taking you through exactly what to expect if you start using Photomator, what's good, what's bad, what could be improved, and all the rest in between, including how much it's going to cost you. Let's get into it. So I'm going to go through some quick pros and cons, and then I'll get a little bit deeper. So what's working in terms of Photomator is the design. And if you're into Apple's design language, then this fits in perfectly. It's clean, it's vibrant, it's modern, it's ticking all the buzzwords that you would look for when you're wanting to use software. And this is important, and I do think people overlook it, that a software that isn't easy on the eye, if you're using it every day, it's not going to inspire you. So having a good, modern, excellent design language for the software is going to be more inspiring for you to edit your images, especially if you're a heavy user like me. It supports RAW editing for a range of camera models. I've been editing my Fujifilm files, no problems whatsoever, and it offers accurate, precise editing, so you can get a very natural look whilst also enhancing the image from out of camera, and then you can get it to looking more vibrant or more eye-catching before you start sharing it online. It's got some cool AI tools as well, object removal, and I was actually quite impressed with how accurate it was. Some of these object removals on other software don't give you good results whatsoever. They look unnatural. They put objects in there that you never asked for. Photomator's actually doing quite a good job here, and not quite on a par with Lightroom, but not far off either. So we'll get into that. I'll show you some testing shortly, but it's doing good there. And finally, another pro is the pricing. You can pay once and own it forever, or you can have a subscription. The options are there. I'll get more into the numbers later as well. So there are some cons, and this is probably where Photomator kind of removes itself from being an option for professional photographers. For example, you can't do batch exporting, which is an absolute nightmare, and I don't understand why. So if you're an event photographer, wedding photographer, and you're dealing with lots of images, then you're going to have to export them manually one by one, and that just makes no sense to me. It's something Apple really needs to improve in future iterations, but that's where we are right now. I did experience some stability issues. It was fine, say, when I was editing my iPhone snaps, that's fine. But when I started putting in those 60 megabyte RAW files in there, which on a crop sensor, you know, they're chunky files, but if you're a full frame shooter, you'll have even large files if you're shooting in RAW. And there was some lag, and it did improve actually when I switched to the M5. So all this to say that if you're on an older machine, you may experience some hiccups, but those on the latest laptops, anything from an M3 upwards, is you're not going to have any problems. There's also a weird thing with Apple Photos, which is Apple's default photo editing app, although very limited and minimal. But when you import images to Photomator, they also import to your Photos streams. So when you go on your iPhone, your iPad, for example, you're going to see all those RAW files there, and it's just clunky, it's messy, nobody wants that. I've yet to find a way to switch it off, so if you do know how to do that and it's me missing it, please let me know down in the comments, because it's one of those things that's also may seem small but a deal breaker, because you just want smooth navigation and functionality, and you don't want to be going through your Photos app manually deleting those RAW files each and every time that you're working on a project. So looking at the core editing tools, everything you would expect to see from a photo editor in 2026 is there. You can adjust your exposure, contrast, you can look at tools such as dehaze, you can play with the clarity, the texture, the sharpness, the vibrancy and the saturation. All the main players are there. So this is much more advanced already than Apple's standard Photos app editor, which is basically just a few presets and some tiny manual adjustments that you can make. And speaking of presets, Photomator has plenty, way more than the standard Photos app, and kind of on a par with other options such as Lumina Neo or Lightroom and Capture One, for example. And it's got some really cool retro kind of presets and lots of different variants and those that suit different genres of photography. And I was quite impressed with the options that are there. And the changes in the presets don't feel minimal. Sometimes that can be the case where you think, has anything actually been made a difference here, switching from one preset to the next? So there's going to be something there for everyone, and you can use these kind of as the foundation of your edit. There are some LUTs too, not many, but there are there. And again, I was really impressed with what Photomator was offering in this department. There's a HSL editor, so you can start doing some color grading. You can experiment with your colors and push them either side, and you can do all the colors that you would expect. There's a color grading tool as well, so you can do your midtones, your highlights, and your shadows, and you can get really granular about it as well. I was really impressed with what Photomator was doing here in terms of color grading and the adjustments that I could make. Felt on a par with more professional tools such as Capture One, for example, which is well known for its color grading abilities. And yeah, you can get very granular and fine tune it to a point where you've got the colors exactly how you want them to look for your edit. There's also tools such as selective clarity. So rather than just doing global clarity adjustments, you can really get into the different tonal parts of your image and add clarity to the different parts and get very granular about it. So your darks, your highlights, your midtones throughout, and just really push or decrease the clarity if you prefer. There's a curve tool as well, so you can really get into your midtones and really get specific about the lighting and the structure and the contrast within your image. And again, very accurate, very subtle, little adjustments didn't overdo it. And yeah, professional results can certainly be achieved when using Photomator, and I enjoyed using these tools as well. One little cool feature I like, and I see this popping up quite a lot now, is film grain. And not every photo editing software has it. It's not a must-have feature, it's just nice to have. But as everyone seems to love that retro film look, and film's expensive nowadays, so a lot of people want to achieve it still while using digital cameras, you can put a little bit of grain in there, and that's useful if you're shooting at a low ISO, say it's in broad daylight, so you're about an ISO 200 to 400, and you want to add a little bit of power in terms of grain and that little raw edgy file. If you're again looking for that classic look, you can do that with Photomator, and as I say, not a must-have, but certainly a nice-to-have feature. So the smart AI tools that are becoming a buzz term in photo editing, but they are extremely useful, that Photomator is offering is firstly object removal. So I took this shot somewhere in Oaxaca and I really like the subject, but the individual had people in the background of the frame and I wanted to get them removed. So I just used the object removal tool, put a brush over it, clicked a button, and Photomator provided really natural looking results. Really impressive here. People won't be able to tell that subjects were removed from the frame. There's also an auto enhance tool, so you can just click the image and it will just make adjustments based after analyzing the raw file where it can be improved. So say if it's the exposure, contrast, the color as well, not color grading, more relating to vibrancy, saturation. Very subtle here in terms of what it does, and it's certainly not going to be the click a button and the edit is done completely, but it can get you on the right path, and then you can go down it and start making your manual adjustments to get the edit to where you want it to be. That's pretty much it in terms of what Photomator offers in terms of AI, and I know a lot of photographers will be fine with that. Not everyone's in on the hype, but if you're looking for sky removal or AI-powered denoise, things like that, you're going to have to be looking at something like Lumina Neo, or you can use a fully AI-powered tool like Imagine, which I'll be posting my review of that shortly. But if you're someone who's not all in on AI, but just wants it for those menial tasks of object removal or starting your edit on the right path, then it's got what you need. So from a usability standpoint, I really like Photomator. I think it's really well designed, which makes navigation absolutely simplistic. And this is really important. You know, a lot of us creatives, we don't like to be getting lost in tutorials or looking for features or trying to understand how a complex feature functions. What we want is something that we can just open up, start using, and get on the path as soon as possible. And Photomator is absolutely doing all of that. The design feels intuitive. Everything is labeled. There's no kind of in-house terminology where you look at a tool and think, what the hell does that mean? It's clearly labeled, so you can just look at the name of an item and you can understand pretty much straight away what that's going to do and how it's going to impact your image. In terms of functionality, I did have some hiccups. For example, the right-hand panel, I would scroll down and without me telling it to do so, it would just jump back up to the top. And that's clearly just a glitch in the software and it's something that needs to be improved. It didn't happen all the time, but there were times where I'd be scrolling down, it'd just go back to the top and I'd have to scroll down again. In 2026, something like that absolute shouldn't be happening. And yeah, Apple needs to get on top of that as soon as possible. As I say, sometimes struggled with the raw files as well. Not a common occurrence, but I would make adjustments to an image and nothing would happen. I'd have to come out, go back in, and then see the edits being reflected. That's not a great workflow. We need to be seeing those adjustments happening in real time so we can make judgments on what we want to do in terms of changing it or tweaking it even further. Didn't happen all the time. Sometimes it would run as smooth as butter, but there were hiccups and it would be amiss of me not to tell you that that is a problem with Photomator. It's just these little issues which are so easy to fix because other photo editing software can do it, and Apple certainly has the resources to fix these issues, but it's these little issues which just doesn't put it on par with the other photo editing software that photographers are using on a daily basis. But those minor issues aside, 95% of the time I was having a pleasant experience with Photomator. And if you're not a heavy user, say you're someone who just goes on vacation, you've got a camera and you know your way around it and you know how to make a good frame, then something like this could be excellent, especially when we start looking at the cost of it. But if you're a pro photographer, these usability issues and the issues with performance, I can't recommend it just yet. So if you look at the pricing, you can pay for a year's subscription, which is going to cost you $34.99, which is not much at all when you consider you're going to be using it over the course of a year. If you don't want to pay that up front, you can pay month to month, which is $7.99, which is going to cost more over the course of a year than just paying the annual fee up front. And again, the annual fee is cheap as chips, so I'd do that if I was you. Or you can buy a lifetime subscription, so you pay once, it's yours to own forever, and that's $119.99. So if you're comparing it to, say, Lightroom, which has no lifetime subscription, so you can't pay once and own forever, but its annual fee is the same price as Photomator costs to own it forever. So you'd pay $119 per year to use Lightroom, and you can pay the same amount and use Photomator forever. It's cheaper than Lumina Neo, but I would say Lumina Neo is a more refined photo editing software, and you can start using that if you're more intermediate to professional level. But for users who aren't at that point, then $119 to own it forever is an absolute steal, really. So as I say, this isn't editing software for professionals. It's certainly beginner friendly. It's very easy to use. It's those who are already in the Apple ecosystem who enjoy not just using the hardware, but the software as well. And I would say when you get up to kind of intermediate level, you could still use this, but anything beyond that, you're going to be looking for a more professional looking photo editing software. I would say give it a go. You can get a 7-day free trial and it's available on the App Store. It also works on mobile and tablet as well. So if you've got an iPad or an iPhone, you can edit your images there and it works pretty much in the same way. Of course, the navigation will be a little bit different to change for the different platforms, the different hardware. But in terms of what's available and what you can do, it's pretty much like for like. and I think you'll enjoy using it, again, if you're a light user. But if you have used it, let me know what you think. Let me know down in the comments if Photomator is something that you're using to edit your images, what you think Apple could do better, and where you think it kind of stands in terms of the whole spectrum of photo editing software. Let me know in the comments. And if you like this quick review, then please do hit a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back again with another review in the future and more video content. Until next time, I'm Dan. This is Zen Frames. See ya.